What happens when the future of work meets entrepreneurship and providing economic empowerment to refugees and those who have had to leave their home country in the search of peace and a new world? Well, Naamal happens. Today, I'm really excited to be having a really interesting discussions with Lorraine Charles from Naamal. Lorraine's expertise is in the political economy, development, education of the Middle East. Her research currently focuses on refugee education and livelihoods, with a particular focus on digital livelihoods. She's the co-founder and executive director of Naamal, a social enterprise which links forcibly displaced people with remote work opportunities, and which also provides skills training and mentorships. So if you're out there wondering what you can do to help the refugees or those who have been moved and were living in other countries, living in refugee camps, and you're thinking, what can I do? Today's discussion is really topical, especially based on what's currently happening, not just in Ukraine, but all over the world. So with Lorraine, we will have the pleasure of understanding why she started Naumal, what are the opportunities that you can from today help by joining Naumal and doing good for the world. Welcome to the Mary Poppins of Startups Live Show. I'm Naili Makangu from Athena Leaders, an organization that is passionate about helping startups dream, play, and build, leaving behind the legacy of a happy and productive workplace playground. For those who are new to this, well, do remember to join us in our discussions, whether live or on replay. Use hashtag Athena Leaders. If you know anybody else that's doing good for the world, whether it's through entrepreneurship, future work, or startups, get them to speak to me. More importantly, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Lorraine, I'm really, really excited that we finally live. We started talking about this early, towards the end of last year, and finally we managed to sync up, and here you are. Can you please let the world know about Naumal and what you are doing at the moment?
Thank you. It's really exciting to be here. And especially considering, as you said, we started speaking about this at the end of last year. And I feel the world has really, we've come to a stage in the world where people, I think, I hope, want to hear this message. So thank you for inviting me. And I'm really excited to share my story and to hear the work that I'm doing with everyone. So I always start to say a couple of things. The future of work is now. And COVID has turned every company into a tech company. Remote work has incredible opportunities. So let's go back a bit. I actually started working remotely, well, without even recognizing I was working remotely, perhaps in 2012, when I was working at university as an academic, and I was writing a paper with a friend, a colleague, a friend, who was living in Venezuela. I was living in Abu Dhabi, she was living in Venezuela, and we were writing a paper about the Arab Spring and women in Syria. We managed to do this work whilst being in different countries. So that was my first, I guess, exposure to remote work. But before that, I was, I sort of studied remotely as well, doing several online courses. So I wasn't new to the world of online education, but online work while I was writing my paper without even recognizing what I was doing. And, and I guess that paper was sort of pivotal in my journey toward creating Normal, because we wrote about Syria. And at that time, the beginning of the refugee crisis, the Arab Spring, we could have chosen any country, but I've been to Syria. My friend lived in Syria, so we thought, let's write about Syria. We both loved Syria. And of course, that's the country which turned into the one which everyone began to work on because of obvious reasons. And so I began to do research on education, and then I did more research on employment. I worked for an organization when I left academia that looked at education for Syrian refugees in Jordan, Lebanon, and Turkey. And I wanted to understand what happens post-secondary education, what happens when people enter the workforce. So I did some research on livelihoods, and this is where the idea came. I saw the gaps in what was happening, and the big gaps I saw were just a really narrow view of what employment would look like. So back all the way back in 2016, my big recommendation from the report I wrote was remote work for refugees. Why can't we reconceptualize employment to consider remote work for refugees? And at that time, I was just sort of doing research to understand the space some more and to really see who was doing what and what could be done. I had no intention of being an entrepreneur, no idea that I would have a startup. And then, fast forward a few years, I met someone else who had the same idea. And we thought we need to do something because there's this big gaping gap and no one was addressing it. So we thought, okay, let's form an organization to really focus on providing refugees the skills and the access to remote employment. But this was 2018 into 2019. We spoke to lots of people and people were like, no, niche idea, it's not going to work. Remote work, no, never going to be a thing. Can you imagine? Never going to be a thing. In 2019, when we registered, again, we tried to talk to lots of people, lots of donors, lots of companies. Again, not really interested. The people that found me were the remote work companies, those companies who were remote before COVID. And that's where I found the audience. They knew that this is viable because they were doing it. COVID was my proof of concept. And I guess from there, this is what accelerated our trajectory into becoming a real organization, having a team, actually doing work. And we did our first project in Jordan, supporting refugees in Zaatari refugee camp and host community around the camp, helping them with the skills to work remotely. So we focus on the human skills or the soft skills. Lots of organizations do the technical skills really well. We thought the soft skills or the human skills are what's missing. So that's what we do. And that's sort of, I guess, a really quick path journey into how I formed NAML, because I just saw a gap and no one was addressing this gap. And I thought, we can do this. Let's create something.
Yeah, and thanks for the wonderful journey. It gave us a very good understanding of from the seed where you started and to where you are now. And in fact, a couple of things that you've said that really resonate was the future of work is now, and you're 100% correct. And also when you start thinking about it, it was only just 2 years ago to 2019. Where people were thinking, it's never going to be possible. It's never going to be possible to be able to work in a hybrid or remote fashion. And yet you were already there, one of the pioneers to bring not just this idea of remote work, but more specifically to help when it comes to displacement and the refugee crisis, starting all the way from a serious refugee crisis. And in fact, this is a very important topic today, as I was saying earlier, and someone from the comments also acknowledged that. It's a very good topic. So thank you, Brigitte, for mentioning that. I'm really excited in terms of the journey. We're going to talk a little bit more about the entrepreneurship journey, because that's quite exciting. But let's dive a bit more in terms of Namal, especially now, because as you said, you had the proof of concept, especially during the pandemic, and now the company is really blossoming and there's more traction going on. So how do you help people how do you help refugees in general? And is it something to do with the refugee camps? It could be in other countries. So how do you help them?
Yeah, so the way we work now, and again, we're constantly pivoting what we do. We work with organizations that do the technical skills, because a lot of refugees have the education, but not necessarily the workplace readiness skills. And especially that a lot of the skills which are required are skills which are emerging. This space is changing so quickly. Jobs are disappearing, jobs are repairing. So one has to continually be educating oneself to keep abreast of this emerging space of digital employment. So what we do is we take we work with refugees. Often they have undergraduate degrees, often they have master's degrees, but not necessarily with these exact with these skills which the workplace requires. So just to give an example of the two projects we're doing right now, we're working in Lebanon, and the organization called Techfugees. They're doing training in data analysis and UX design and project management. Sectors which are really emerging, which are in really high demand. We're also working with MIT React, and that's a global cohort of refugees from all over the world. And MIT does a certificate in data and computer science, again, Python, data analysis, things which are in really high demand. And then we support with the human skills for digital employment, the soft skills for remote work. And then we take these candidates to companies, and we say to companies, unlike a regular recruiter, we've trained this talent. We know what education they've had. We know who they are because they've been with us for 3 months, for 6 months. The MIT program is for a year. They've been through lots of different learning experiences. So we can tell you with our hand in our hearts that these are good candidates and they'll fit within your company. So at the moment, we work with partners that are doing the technical training because we recognize that both are important. So,
and just not to interrupt you there, I just wanted to really emphasize something that you've said for our listeners that are wondering how's that, because I know that a lot of people probably wonder about the quality of the training. And one thing that you've said that struck me as really exciting was the fact that, of course, you work with partners, but this is not just go and do something for 2 weeks, right? It's a proper course that's been designed and thought through, 6 months, a year course, that when the person going out on the other side has the technical skills to do the job. Is that correct?
Yes. Because we know that these skills are, the technical skills, these human skills are not easy to learn. It takes a lot of investment, time, a big time investment. So the programs that we do aren't just a 2-week course, because really after 2 weeks, unless you have a really solid background, there's not much you can do in 2 weeks. So these are long, extensive courses which require lots of time investment. Our partner in Jordan that we did last year, they're a coding academy. So 6 coding, course plus our course. So when the refugees graduate from these programs, they have the skills. Yes, they're junior talent, but they have advanced digital skills.
Of course. And again, one of the bigger issue that we have in tech is the shortages of skills. And I definitely appreciate what you said, because I'm a software engineer by trade, although I work mostly in a leadership position and product development and project management and all of that. And one of the things I love about tech is very practical. So someone coming in, having a course that's based on the latest and greatest that people are actually using, rather than just assuming that university is the best, will provide a lot to organizations. In fact, earlier this year, we had a discussion with 2 women that works as developer advocates, and we talked about this idea of boot camps. How more and more people are going to boot camps, which is essentially what you are doing. But in addition to you providing just a boot camp, you also have all of the other aspects that other people could be missing out on, which includes how do you work remotely and communicate remotely better in an organization.
Exactly. And this bootcamp model of education is perhaps, I don't want to say it's going to supersede universities, but people are recognizing that with these intensive bootcamp trainings, they are far more work ready than regular undergraduate degrees. Often people do both, but they recognize that an undergraduate degree is not enough to make you employable. So these bootcamp trainings, really intensive, give you the skills really quickly, and they sort of create this sort of resilience around the learner who goes through this program to really cope well with the changing nature of work. It gives you this growth mindset, so you could and the idea that you continuously learn, so that you can not only start this career, but you can pivot from one skill to another, because we know digital skills change so quickly. Digital jobs are emerging all the time, they're disappearing all the time. So one key aspect is this growth mindset. How do you continue to learn and continue to grow?
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of the policies aspects, right? So what have you seen before and after, obviously before COVID and after COVID, when it comes to policy, just in terms of being able to for people to work in different aspects? I would assume that for anyone watching, especially if they come from traditional organizations where you have one place of work or different locations, but people are assigned to a fixed location that's based on the countries. So for them, they, even though we talk about this idea of remote work, the idea that you can hire someone in a company or in a country where you don't have any kind of physical assets or company or even registration could be seen as a problem. So how do you go around that to encourage more companies to come in and also start recruiting from the people that you've trained through your programs?
So this can be quite a contentious issue, and I'm actually organizing a panel discussion for a conference. I'll put the conference in your notes, a migration conference with refugees in April. And one of the panels I'm organizing is around the right to work. So if we think of people who aren't refugees, someone who lives in their country of citizenship or lives in a country where they have the legal right to work, be they a refugee or not, it's easy. An employer of records allows a foreign employer to employ someone as an employee in a country where they don't have jurisdiction. So in a way, this is easy. And for refugees, there's a fantastic company called Remote that's offering companies their services for free if they hire refugees. So if they hire one of our talent, their employer of record service will be free for that company. Normally it could cost up to $500 a month, but for a refugee, they've offered the service for free. So there are really easy legal ways to hire refugees. So the complication is 70% of refugees live in places which have restrictions on their right to work. And often these rules are placed because they're protectionist labor market mechanisms, protecting the host community, protecting the native population. But if we look at this new form of, this new way of working, remote work is a democratization of employment. It democratizes work. So when we're competing for a job, we aren't competing with the person who lives in the house next door or the city or the city down the road. We're competing with people from all over the world. So surely this means that these laws which governments place protecting their host community from people who are foreigners, non-residents, non-nationals, surely these rules become, don't make sense anymore. They become moot because with remote jobs, we're competing globally. So there needs to be some sort of reconceptualization of government policies for how do we legislate, how do we address people who theoretically don't have the right to work in your country, and you're not, and they're not, and that rule is so they won't compete with the local population. But working remotely, they aren't competing with the local population. And my argument is to countries which place restrictions on refugees' right to work is surely having a refugee or a non-national or a migrant or whoever in your country who is working remotely, bringing in foreign exchange, if there's a way for them to be legalized somehow, even if not to work in the host country, but if they can formally work remotely, which is a democracy of democratizing employment, surely this is a benefit to the country where a refugee is, where he can work, spend money in the country, pay tax in the country, and this money is coming from overseas. So this is a very complicated space. It's new and emerging. Policies have yet to be in place, and not just for refugees. For most for most people, the whole digital nomad scene of sort of nomads going to Thailand, going and going to Bali, these were on tourist visas. So again, kind of the gray zone, because they aren't working in the local economy, they're working remotely. So this is a gray zone which needs to be sorted out. But I know measures people are thinking about it and people are talking about it and trying to figure out how to address this space.
Yeah, and I guess especially in terms of those discussions, it's something that I always keep my eyes on, especially that I pretty much live in two countries, Spain and the UK, and I do a lot of work in Europe and other countries as well. One of the things that I'm seeing a lot in Spain is, especially Gran Canaria, the Canary
Hmm.
Islands, and that region, is that they are really trying to tap into this new idea of workation where people can come move around. And if you enjoy the nature, you have good internet, why can't you work for a month in somewhere where you can either go to the beach or you can go hiking or you can discover the country or learn Spanish, which is one of the reasons why that brought me to Spain. I just wanted to learn the language. And I guess taking that a step further in terms of refugees and dealing and with the refugee crisis around the world, one thing that we all know about and we hear a lot, as you're talking about the limitation of the right to work to ease whatever influx they might have in terms of jobs within the region. Now, this happens a lot for the country that surrounds the place where there's a war or a reason why people have moved. Now I can see, especially through what you're saying earlier, why kind of, looking at those policies will be a great way for people to be able to make money locally by people who are refugee having the right to work, even like you said, even if it's just by working remotely, can actually they're spending and are giving back to the economy of the countries that are sheltering them and the country that will become theirs in a few years as well, whilst at the same time having the dignity to work at exactly the same level or even better than when they left their previous country.
Yes, exactly. And if we consider that a lot of refugees, but if we think of traditional employment, a lot of them work informally. They work often in conditions which are precarious, where they're qualified. So who have to work. Oh, sorry, it just went blank. So allowing refugees who have the skills to work remotely access to the digital employment. It means they can work at their skill level. They don't lose human capital by not working, by working in a job which is below their skill level. So it's, in a way, it's a win-win for everyone. And
Yeah.
and all of this means that not just for refugees but everyone, we need to reconceptualize how we consider employer-employee relations, because this is all down to that. How, who's an employee, who's a contractor, how do we sort of navigate this space? And again, a lot of the rules which existed for a time when this space wasn't so big, existed for a time when we weren't working like this.
Yeah. And one of the things I love about this discussion, for those who don't know, is that I'm currently in Madrid. Next month, I'll be in Cambridge, Leicester, Birmingham, and maybe other cities. And Lorraine, you're currently in Abu Dhabi. And I know you're probably coming to Cambridge soon. So we're going to meet face to face at some point. Yeah. So
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
another example of how this new world or the future of work is really opening up and giving us a lot more potentials and opportunities.
And also for refugees, I always say that we have to really be careful of our terminology, because we have this terminology of the digital nomad. For refugees, they aren't working remotely to relocate. This is a more virtual mobility. They need, they don't have access to the same level of mobility as others, even though, that's political discussion. But this virtual mobility allows them the right or the ability to choose not to move. And if we consider, for digital nomads, for lack of a better word, they want to work remotely because they want to move from Cambridge to Madrid, from Helsinki to Gran Canaria. But for refugees, often if they're in a safe country near to their home country, many want to stay close to home. But in many countries where refugees are hosted, there aren't enough jobs, even for the host community, far less for another population. By giving refugees access to work that's not within their community, it allows them to have virtual mobility, but not necessarily needing to physically move, because sometimes they want to stay where they are, but a lot of the times where they are, there is no opportunity, there is no work. Giving them the ability to say, okay, I want to stay in my host country. I don't necessarily want to go to Europe. I want to stay where I am, but I want the type of job which I would get if I lived in these global capitals. So this virtual mobility has a much bigger impact on people, giving them the choice not to move.
Yeah. I'm an organization now, I run a company or whatever, and I'm listening to this and I'm really excited. And I really want to start digging deeper to find out how can I hire refugees, especially those who have gone through your course so that they can work remotely. But I'm also mindful of the fact that I need to set up my current organization to have a strong, obviously understanding things from the legal aspect, but also have a good onboarding. What
Yes.
would you recommend that I do?
I mean, I'm not an expert on onboarding. They're great remote consultants that help you. I think for companies, especially those that are now entering the space of remote work, if you're thinking hybrid, you think like a remote company, because with everyone working from different locations, even if you have even with people in the office, you have to think that everyone is working remotely and set up policies so that it accommodates for those who are in the office or part-time in the office, as well as those who are remote. So I do recommend being really, really conscious of your remote work policies, making sure that they suit everyone. Asynchronous work, again, recognizing that people are in different time zones. With refugees, they often have issues of sometimes not great connectivity some of the times. So being as asynchronous as possible is a great way to be inclusive.
Definitely. And the other thing that you've mentioned earlier as well was a company called Remote, I believe, that can also help with the legal aspects of how do I structure my company in certain countries, especially if you're not registered there yet.
Exactly. And with companies like Remote, you don't need to be registered in different countries because their employer record services allows you to hire globally because they have the ability to, as long as they have, these companies are part of their lists or whatever it's called, they allow any company wherever they're based to hire anyone wherever they're based as an employee. So with payroll, with all of the HR services around that. So the solutions are there. It's just we just have to just the willingness to do it. I think that so many companies have been doing this even before COVID means that it's possible. All the companies which were remote before COVID, Doist, GitLab, they've been doing it for ages, for years.
Yeah, it's kind of like you are the connector, really. And in fact, that's resonate with one of the comments that we've got that's saying, great topic. What you do with NAMAL is amazing. Giving refugees access to what is not in their reach helps them integrate and get back to work. It's also great for the economy of their host country. Thanks for sharing the comments. So
Exactly.
I love so from an organization perspective, again, what I want to stress out from what you've just said is the fact that all the pieces of the puzzle exist at the moment. So for anyone who's really interested in giving it a go, they can just get in touch with you and you will help connect them to all of the organization and through the work that you are doing to help them make it happen. So especially right now, there's a lot of people asking, what can we do? What can we do when it comes to social economy, impact, empowerment? Well, there are solutions that already exist and there are blueprints that already exist, as you said before. The two aspects of it. One is the hiring process. Well, there's a company that does everything for you. And the second one is the onboarding one. There are many consultants and many people I came on this show I've interviewed as part of the future of work that can also help. But let's not forget the third component, which is the one I'm even more passionate about, is how do I make sure that we are getting people who have the right talents and skill set? And that's exactly what Naval is doing by getting them through the training. So if anyone is out there, whether you are running a company or even working for a company that are thinking about what can we do next, how about we start thinking even thinking outside of the box, right? Way more than just raising funds for today or tomorrow, but on how to help people secure stable work so that they can help them as they are or continuing with their lives in a new place.
Yes, definitely.
So we have a question coming in. Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry, we had a question coming in from the audience. So what feedback have you received from those who have already been recruited?
So yeah, we've had some really positive feedback. A lot of the times we hear that not only are the technical skills good, but they are greater teamwork, greater collaborating. A lot of the refugees we work with have really great resilience because of what they've had to go through. They are really committed to the work, to their employers. We've had people be recruited to quite big companies and doing smaller freelancing work. We see ourselves as not just a pathway to employment, but a pathway to also further education. So recognizing that perhaps someone has come on our program and they also want to do more education. We see that as another pathway which we highly encourage. So, for example, one of the learners from last year, from the MIT React cohort, got a full scholarship to Cornell. So it's not a job, but it's a huge success that we celebrate because it's, he's done brilliantly to have achieved that. So we also see, we see ourselves as multi-pathway employment, but also further education.
Well, that's impressive. I guess it's really about opening the door, giving someone who may have thought this is it, I've lost everything, to say no, you still have doors that you can open yourself through the opportunity that we are giving you.
Yes, exactly. And also entrepreneurship. We have a few alumni who live in one Malawi and one in Uganda who've started training programs for refugee children, livelihood programs. So not only are we preparing them for work remotely, we give them this entrepreneurial mindset where they think, I can do something myself. I don't have to be employed. I can create my own. And that's another thing which we talk about. How do you then take what you've been given and do something else? And, we're all about impact. And I think, I hope we try to, we want others, obviously, a gainful employment is the ultimate goal, but people who have the desire to create impact, and a lot of our alumni do that, we really highly encourage and support that.
Yeah, this is brilliant. I have to admit, I had goosebumps there when you start talking about how the work that you're doing is really multiplying through others taking on board and also continuing what you're doing in other areas. So now we've looked at the organization aspects of how can they help, especially companies coming in and helping in terms of the recruitments. One other question that came up on the chat was how can people or individual that really, really wants to get involved, how can that help your organization?
Yeah, thank you. Really good question. And we really try to be an organization that allows people to be engaged. So part of our program is a mentorship program. So when the learners go through our program, they have the workshops and the online courses. But the third part, when they're doing an internship, is a mentorship program. And so we sort of do this in two ways. This is one of our income generating streams. So we partner with companies who sponsor the mentorship program, and then with the funding, we're able to sort of continue our work. But also, we always have places for people who aren't part of companies necessarily. because we have a large number of refugees we need to mentor. So this is where we often open it up to the world. So we encourage people, especially people who have worked remotely, who are passionate about remote work, who want to mentor talent, to mentor our learners. So our previous mentorship program last year, we had 50 refugee learners, 50 mentors from all over the world, different companies, different sectors, different ages, different stages of life. And they were part of our mentorship program. We have a structured program, but of course, it's flexibility if the mentor has experience. But if they don't, we provide training, we provide the scaffolding so that the mentors can really make the most of it. And we see this as a learning opportunity. Both gain. The refugee learners, our mentees, they gain a lot, but also the mentors also gain a lot. They have this amazing opportunity to work with this excited young talent. Often, but mind you, our talent is all ages. But they have this opportunity to work with this amazing individual to help them in their next year, in their next stage of life, in their professional journey. So this is something we open up for everyone. So we will have a mentorship program starting in the summer. So we'll have some places, limited places for people to sign up to mentor, especially if you're passionate about remote work, because the mentorship program is around helping our learners navigate professional skills for remote work.
Yeah. And I will even add to that as well, in addition to the mentorship, also to join in and keep an eye out on the discussion that you are driving next month. I think you mentioned there's 2 years coming up, right?
Yeah.
Do you mind repeating them for those who just joined the call?
Yes. So in April, NAML and MIT React and Karam Foundation and MIT JWell are hosting a migration summit. It's a month-long event, month-long summit of panels, storytelling, workshops, all around the theme of refugee education and workforce development. We have lots of fantastic organizations leading panels, lots of panelists talking about lots of aspects of this space. I will share the details, sign up, and we'll have, I think there are perhaps over 50 sessions to choose from every day for all of April. And it'll be really exciting. We've been working really hard to make a fantastic event.
Yeah, the future of work is now, and the time to really start making changes for the economic empowerment for refugees is also now. So I will highly stress to anyone listening this to really go and join in the conversation. For those who want to get involved from an organization perspective, we've talked about so many ways. It's not as daunting as you think, especially when you've got Naamal on your side, as well as those who want to have from the personal perspective. We can't leave without finding a bit more about you, Lorraine. I'm really passionate about Nama and everything that you're doing through that. But I'm also equally passionate about your own journey, all the way from all the things that you've done in research, in understanding policies and politics, and all the way to starting your own company. So, do you want to share with us some of the key points that went through your mind or through as you're going through this journey of now being a startup yourself?
It's hard. I think every day I wake up and I think, oh my God, this is so hard. Sometimes I think, just give me a regular job and a regular paycheck. It's hard. But it's ultimately really rewarding. The fact that, I can create a livelihood. I can create a livelihood, not just for myself, but for other people, help making the world a better place. And there's this thing called ikigai, and I'm quite obsessed with ikigai. It's what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what brings you money. The intersection of all of those is your ikigai and what gives you ultimate happiness. I'm not sure if I'm quite there yet, but this is what I aim to have. Every day I wake up and I think this is really hard, but I wake up and I think it is for a purpose. I'm not doing a meaningless job. I'm doing something for a much higher purpose. And for me, despite all the challenges, and every day is a challenge, every single day is a challenge. I think I feel lucky and fortunate to have the ability to do what I'm doing to make the world a better place, to change the world. And this is what I always say to my team. Okay, every day we're changing the world. We're making the world a better place. We're changing the world.
Oh, thank you. This is, well, as it says in the comment, they also had goosebumps and they're obsessed with Ikigai too. So yes, I believe that you are well on your way to achieving your Ikigai, especially through the work and the commitment that you are going through. So when you look at Namal and the organization and the startups, what kind of help and support do you need?
Yeah, so we're thinking, hopefully, doing a crowdfunding campaign soon, maybe in the summer, because we need to establish organizational growth. Because for us to help more people to do more, we need a bigger team, and this is I guess our constant battle. Navigating, the money and the team. We need a bigger team to do more work. So we're thinking of a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to, but most importantly, hire our talent. We need people to say, yes, I want to work with you. I want to hire your talent. A lot of them are junior talent, but learn very quickly. They have the skills, but they're just starting off. Hire our talent. Sponsor our mentorship program. This will make a big difference because it means that we can do more and more and more work. And often what stops us from doing more projects, because we get asked all the time, we'd like to partner with you, but if there's no funding, we struggle to do it. We just don't have the capacity to do it all. We just simply, we can't, we don't. But if we can build our organization, build our business model, we can do projects without thinking, well, we don't have enough funding. So it means that we can do projects even if the funding isn't sufficient to cover our costs. If we have money within the organization, we can decide which projects to do that we're really passionate about. So we really need you. Hire our talent, sponsor our mentorship program. If you're a large company and you have need for a lot of for quite a number of people with one skill, we can work together and build a skills training program, digital skills training program with you. We can train 20, you can have the top 10. There are many ways we can work together, but it's all about believing and taking the risk. And I always say, can you imagine if in 2018 someone said, this is a good idea, I want to support refugees working remotely? Do you know how far we would be now? Instead, we had to have a pandemic show that remote work is possible. Can you imagine if people had the foresight? And I don't like to say that I had the foresight, but I was lucky to have had the foresight.
That's for sure. And the world, we are lucky that you had the foresight to start when you did, to have the building blocks and the foundation before the pandemic.
Yes, exactly.
Normally, I always ask the speaker, where they are going with the organization, but I think we know. Then today I'm going to do something a bit different. I'm going to challenge the listeners. Not just whether you are watching us live on replay, I am going to send out a challenge for you. The world is what it is, and at the moment there's a lot of people that are feeling like they don't feel empowered. They feel demotivated, they feel drained after 2 years of negative press, COVID, people dying of COVID, wars breaking out in different places, people losing their job, automation, so much more. For you watching this, there's a lot of things that you are probably saying, wow, I feel so stressed, and it's outside of your circle of concerns or control, but it's affecting you. So let's take some control back by being able to actually empower ourselves to do some good. So if you are watching this, you feel tired, stressed, and demotivating, then ask yourself how you can help as of today. Even if the help is by speaking to one other person about what Namal is doing at the moment, speaking to your boss in your organization, even if they start by telling you, we don't know how we can help, well, speak to your charity and the social committee that you have at work and see how you can collectively do one thing that can at least give you the own sense of empowerment that you want for your own life. So that's my little plea, which I don't really do very often in my live show because that's not what it's about. But I believe that if there is a moment where I have to break away from my own rules, well, this is now. So I'm challenging you, and please do get in touch with us. If you have any question on how to do that, we will put together the summary of the discussion on our blogs and also all of the hashtags and the information that you need to reach out to Namal directly.
Thank you so much for inviting me here. It's been so wonderful to speak to you and the live audience, and please be in touch. Our website, I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, everything.
Really. And to the rest of you, let's my main advice: remember to design a happy and productive workplace playground together with Namal as well.